Good evening, my friends. Praise to God that we can be at the same time the execution in the Zoom to complete this last task in SLE course. Let's pray together before we start the presentation. Praying start. Okay. Thank you. Praying ends. I will read the names of our member. Our member consists of 7 persons. Pertama, LODUVIKUS IRVAN. Second, Dandi, third, DARWATI UMAMIT. Fourth, MUJIATI. Fifth, SIWI WARDHANI. Sixth, DESY NOVITA. Seventh, NOVITA SUSARANI. And the list goes on to the slide. The first slide is introducing. I have introduced you. Second slide by Dandi. Slide 3 by SIWI. Slide 4 by EFTITA. Slide 5 by LODUVIKUS IRVAN. Slide 6 by DESY. Slide 7 by MUJIATI. Slide 8 by DARWATI. Slide 9 EFTITA. Okay, let's start to the next slide. The nature and meaning of avoidance by Mas Dandi, please.
Okay, the nature and meaning of avoidance. It is worth to note that according to Carson, 1987, 51, avoidance is a linguistic phenomenon whose historical roots go back to the rhyme of affiliated linguistics as it was first brought to light by the pioneer Scudder, and in due course it has cut across different disciplines other than linguistics, such as cognition, psychology, sociology, dan lain-lain. Evidence as a term is problematic and vague. Its meaning varies from one situation to another. As such, it becomes problematic in the sense whether to make a distinction or not, and even how to make it between evidence and other terminologies. Evidence is distinctive in terms of its equivocal nature, starting from its definition, description, and analysis for being dynamic, significant means used by people to convey different messengers everywhere and at any time. Okay.
Thank you.
Next.
The next slide is read by DHEA. Silakan, Dia.
Okay. The next is verbal aspects of avoidance in linguistic settings. When it comes to distinguishing avoidance as a phenomenon in various linguistic domains, a shift of emphasis can be noticed on seminal queries, which are waiting for answers like, what are these linguistic domains? Which domain is the starting point for avoidance and why? Next.
Okay, thank you. Now the first slide. In what follows, verbal aspect of avoidance will be focused on various linguistic branches, namely phonology, morphology, syntax, semantics, and pragmatics. Morphological avoidance. In verbal communication, the user of the language finds himself, in some cases, in need of fulfilling certain communicative needs by adopting or even inventing certain mechanisms to reduce the full-length words into certain abbreviated forms. Syntactic avoidance. Various studies highlight the existence and the potential causes of avoidance behavior in second language learning as far as the syntactic aspect of language are concerned. One must reckon and then with instances to explain such a behavior when discussing some of scholars' views. Schachter, 1974, marks the birth of avoidance as a phenomenon in linguistic studies. Her contribution can be summarized as follows in comparing the errors in relative clauses made by native speakers of 4 different languages, namely Chinese, Japanese, Persian, and learners of French as a second language. She has found that the difficulty of producing relative clauses for both Chinese and Japanese learners is not determined by the numbers of errors made by the learners. Okay, and then we go to the 5th slide by DESY, by LODUVIKUS IRVAN.
Okay, thank you, Mbak EFTITA. Semantic evidence, the belief that items as a significant part of the semantic structure of English are avoided on the part of learners has no clear evidence for the research in the
1970s.
Yes, 1917s for hence 1973. One of such indirect indicators is a learner's belief that items avoidance is language specific, hence not such either not transferable to second language. This spurring from the fact that items are not common in the foreign talks. That is, teachers may not use item when endorsing the learners. In their two experimental studies in the Netherlands, Jordan, the year 1907, and Kleinman, the year 1970, present another indicator. Point D, pragmatic avoidance. Studies on transfer as far as language, teaching and learning are concerned have usually focused on different types of linguistic entities of the first language and the second language. Still, such work have totally overlooked transfer of the communicative function of these entities in the two languages in question. Point E, semantic pragmatic avoidance. Some are said to be universally oriented, some others are culturally oriented, varying from one situation to another or from one speaker to another. Any item then at answering the query raised in the title must take into account the semantic and pragmatic nature of these rulers. Okay, next slide.
Okay, thank you. The next slide is by DESY NOVITA, slide 6.
Okay.
Yes, please. Okay. Non-verbal aspect, please. Maaf Mbak Desi, di mute masih. Silakan.
So far, we have remarked that avoidance in second language setting commonly lends itself to the definite nature of learners' behavior as a dynamic safe strategy in the process of learning, which involves avoiding certain linguistic features verbally, yet it may seem out of keeping that some phase of nonverbal avoidance can be viewed to function either positively or negatively. In the same area, such phase sometimes could be methodology for teachers or strategies for learners. Some instances will be sketched here.
Okay. And then the next slide is slide 7 by Mbak Mujiati.
Okay, thank you. 1. Positive avoidance, nonverbal teacher versus verbal learner. Silence is a dynamic methodology frequently observed in teaching foreign language. This is proof in Lawford's observation of classroom for more than 5 years, especially during group learning. Lawford examined the different reaction towards silence of learners. Japanese, Spanish, and American groups engaged in community language learning or even in ordinary classes. Basically, his work is based on cataloging silence from 3 different perspectives. Silence on the part of the teacher, silence of the part of the learner, and silence when called for by the community language learning contract. More basic or revealing in the argument, here is the first perspective leaving the other two, particularly the second one, for subsequent discussion.
Okay, thank you. Now the next slide is slide 8 by Mbak Darwati.
Okay, thank you. I will explain negative avoidance, verbal teacher versus non-verbal learner. The sound of silence here might sound another may sound different from that used by teacher in the class as shown above. This time, the research attempts to account this message, taking silence on the part of the learners starting from childhood. That is, early stages of learning, moving the more advanced stages, so as the magnify briefly the function of silence in English as second language or English as foreign language classes as strategy adopted by learners. Teacher may label some of the English as the second language, children as articulative, nonverbal, or silent in the class. In this sense, the silent word not reply to any type of questioning. Rather, responding with the word eyes and the head and silence. Tracking to sight or events, the silence adopted by children may explore and map many areas related to the atmosphere of teaching English, whether a second or event of foreign language or silent. Above all is the psychology. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Mbak Darwati. Now the last slide is by EFTITA. The positive avoidance listening, a healthy technique in classes. Listening as opposed to talking or speech is another good candidate to be included in the set of the non-verbal phases of avoidance. It seems on the surface that listening is like silence. Yet there is a virtue in being obliged to draw a distinction between the two terms, especially what concerns the field as issue. As noted